Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel with my coffee and a new mug, which I love handmade mugs, and this is one that I picked up at a market over the weekend. I think in one of my other videos I highlighted the sticker that I got and the prints that I got, but I did not highlight the mug that I also got because I love supporting independent vendors and artists who hand make and create things. So this is one of them. It's got a really cool pocket watch clock on it. It does have some detailing in it, so I thought it was really cool. But let us dive in. Well, first we've got our coffee, we've got our books and our reviews. We don't have rain, but that's okay. Now, it is crazy hot outside, and I want to say we have a heat index somewhere of 107 at the moment. And the biggest issue with that is that it's very humid outside, so you don't have the ability to cool down. That is one of the biggest issues with some of the heat here in the South is, like, I guess there's a way to measure it where when you have a thermometer and you dip it in water, like the same temperature, ambient temperature, the water is, let's say 107. Well, when you take it out, that thermometer should go down. However, with the amount of humidity in the air currently, that thermometer is staying pretty close to that super high temperature. So it's very easy to get overheated in this particular weather right now. So I know a lot of you guys are not here in the South, but if you are anywhere that has high humidity and high heat, please take care of yourself and hydrate. I do have a very big thing of water next to me. It's just coffee is my first priority. But let's dive into the book of the moment, and the book of the moment is The Forgotten Room, Where Shadows Meet a Gothic Suspense by Stefonie Jones. Now, I thought this one was very interesting because it's actually very short. I don't even know if I would call it a novella so much as perhaps a short story. It was maybe 50 pages on my e-reader, and even some of those pages are incredibly short. So, I mean, I'm talking it would only be like a page and a half of things happening in the world that we're reading about. But let me dive into the summary and we'll go from there. Some doors were never meant to be opened, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Belladonna Ashburn inherits Umbercrest Abbey, expecting silence. Instead, she finds a vanishing staircase, a raven that watches her, and a key she can't explain, one that unlocks more than doors. The house doesn't just hold secrets, it keeps them. As time bends and her reflection shifts, Belladonna uncovers the truth her family tried to erase before the house makes her part of it. A chilling blend of gothic suspense, haunted house fiction, and buried family secrets. So there we go. Now, it does seem as though this potentially could have more parts because it does say unlock the first secret the house tried to forget. So it does sound like there's going to be more, or at least other installments, which I think once you put those together could make a more reasonable sized novel. If not still a longer form novella, because this one's only about 66 pages on the Kindle edition. Again, I think my e-reader had somewhere around 55, but it was first published May 6th of 2025. The only reason I'm doing this now is because I only just found it recently, and it was available on NetGalley, and it sounded like a cool premise, and so I was like, you know what? I'm willing to pick that up and see what it's all about. I love finding independent authors who maybe do self-publishing. I love seeing what they have to say, because like big box stores and big name authors, I think they already find their audience and their niche. However, I think indie authors are really where a lot of really great books are kind of hidden if you can find them. And so that's one of the reasons I cover so many of those on this channel is I'll still cover some of the bigger authors. I've covered Brandon Sanderson before, John Scalzi, and several others. However, one of my hopes is that I'm also able to just highlight independent authors of all varieties. And she fell into a category of horror because I clicked on the horror topic in NetGalley to find books currently available in that genre. Now, did I find this to be horrific? No, but did it give me a vibe of, let's say, The Haunting of Hill House with like Liam Neeson and Catherine Zeta-Jones and is it Owen Wilson? Yeah, that one. It kind of gave me that vibe because if you kind of watch the character Nell as she kind of starts to spiral into this level of madness, like that's what it felt like for me for a good portion of this book. I wasn't certain what was real and what was illusion, what was real ghost activity, what might be her spiraling into some level of madness or psychosis. I was not sure. So I think that made it all the more interesting for me. And it does seem as though the readers who have been able to pick this up have given it fairly decent reviews, 4 and 5 stars. Now, I think you can always say there's going to be a few people it's not going to hit home with, and that's okay. I wasn't certain because of the formatting of it. Not sure it was completely formatted correctly, so that's just for and I had the NetGalley app, so I don't know if it would be formatted differently on other like media like a Kindle or something. But it is a short horror read, and it's very quick because, like I said, even some of the chapters are 1 and 2 pages long, so those just fly by pretty fast. I think one of my biggest concerns or my biggest takeaways that I think the author can work on is the use of like and as. Like as if she were doing this, or like the wind blowing through curtains or something. Using those similes and comparisons that I think she could definitely be more creative if she just kind of sat and explored the wording a little bit better. It does feel, because she's using some of those phrases frequently, that it gets a bit repetitive, but that's just for me. I also felt like some of her imagery was a bit repetitive, but still felt like it was kind of that spiral into madness, kind of that yellow wallpaper story. That's You're not sure at the end what's really happened and how she's really processing it. So it's very interesting like that, because this book does have, and I feel like upon her walking back into this Umbercrest Abbey. So my thought was, oh, it's an abbey, so there's going to be people there, but there weren't any people there. It's just her all by herself. At least that's how I read it and interpreted it. Yet the house is full of memories of the past that are slowly trying to whisper to her. And it seems as though the house is whispering to her to consume her, or the abbey is trying to consume her, but she is fighting to try not to be overtaken by the things that the house is showing her and the things that are kind of coming up from her past and when she was an infant and when she was a child. So I think a lot of that is really important to kind of note, is that there is this battle of the house is trying to draw her in, she is trying to push away, she's trying to solve the secret without being completely overtaken in her mind. And that's where you get this almost dreamlike-esque quality to the book. And again, I kind of go back to The Haunting of Hill House, or The Haunting, I think is actually what it's called, the movie, that it has a dreamlike-esque state where there are points where the characters are starting to fall asleep and things happen. So was it a dream, or was it like some sort of like kind of sleep paralysis sort of thing? Like, what was it that like caused this to happen? Was it real? Was it not? So you do have that illusion. Now there's moments when she looks into mirrors and there's like figures behind her, or she sees herself looking differently. So all pretty creepy. And I was really, I enjoyed it. Like, now I will also say that the narrative is not written like a story. It is more poetic, like prose, in its I guess, formatting and its wording. So that is also something to highlight here as well. Is it almost feels like prose, free form poetry, and a lot of it can be what I would think of as like stream of consciousness, perhaps from the perspective of the house, perhaps from the perspective of Belladonna. But I think that was something to think of as well. I think that was why I was also intrigued by this story, is it was very different than just a horror story. It was in a little bit of a different format that made it a bit more intriguing. So it is short. I don't want to dive too much into it to tell you how things play out. And I've already done about 10 minutes of this video. I know about a minute of it in the beginning was me talking about the heat and the weather, so I do apologize for that. But I'm going to try to include with this episode one more episode called The Monsters of Elendhaven. So just stay tuned. I'm going to click off and then click back on so we can dive into The Monsters of Elendhaven. So hold tight, because we've got another one coming. See you soon in just a minute. I am back to talk to you all about The Monster of Elend. So I think I said Elden. It's Elendhaven. So I'm going to put the cover over here, but by Jennifer Giesbrecht. And this was very wild. The characters are not morally gray. They are evil. And that is just all there is to say about them. But I thought because both this book and the one that I just talked about, which was The Forgotten Room, both of them are short. So I thought, well, it would be good to go ahead and put these together, and that way I can make the most of you guys' time. Now, this one was kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, except they truly are two different people, and they are absolutely cruel monsters, just in general, just cruel monsters. But let us dive into the city of Elendhaven or the monsters of Elendhaven, and let us dive into the summary. The city of Elendhaven sulks on the edge of the ocean. Racked by plague, abandoned by the South, stripped of industry and left to die. But not everything dies so easily. A thing without a name stalks the city. A thing shaped like a man, with a dark heart and long, pale fingers yearning to wrap around throats. A monster who cannot die. His frail master sends him out on errands, twisting him with magic, crafting a plan too cruel to name, while the monster's heart grows fonder and colder and more cunning. These monsters of Elendhaven will have their revenge on everyone who wronged the city, even if they have to burn the world to do it. Now, it is considered horror, fantasy, it is a novella, and it does have a queer theming, and it is adult. So I definitely recommend, understand, it's going to be pretty adult in its content. It's about 160 pages, but it's still considered a novella because that is still shorter than a regular novel. And it was first published September 24th of 2019. So I'm wondering if this one found its way into either a reprint or if it found a new publisher. I am not sure because I just received this from Tor. I got it on NetGalley, but it was from Tor Nightfire, so it might be a re-release. I'm not sure. And so again, it was dark and very grim and very gritty, and so we have this being, Johann. And so when he is young, I would talk like a child of 4 or 5 years old, he has no real soul of any kind. And he doesn't even really have a name. Someone asks him his name one day, and they're like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "What's a name?" So they throw out a couple names. That person just throws out a couple names. And the one that seems to stick is Johann. And he's like, "Yeah, I can work with that, Johann." And he rolls it around in his head, and he's like, "Yeah." So as he grows up, he becomes very much like a Jack the Ripper character. There is something about this guy. People do not remember when they cross paths with him. He is like a shadow who lurks on the edge of your vision, goes and does these terrible things, and yet nobody is able to point fingers at him and say that's the person, because no one remembers him from moment to moment. If he's standing right in front of you, if you've had a conversation with him, it seems as though there is something about him people just do not remember. And he actually likes it like that, because that means he can do whatever he wants and no one's going to say doo-doo about it. Now, he would probably say it in a lot of different ways, but let's just say he is a really bad dude. Well, then he runs across Florian, and Florian Leichenbloom is this hoity-toity guy whose family still has, like, they still have a name in the town. They're still known as being, I wouldn't call him noble, but at least an aristocrat of sorts, of having some sort of level of prestige. Well, he's like, Johann starts stalking this particular guy in order to just, like, kind of play cat and mouse with him. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna stalk this guy, and then probably just kill him in an alley or something. It's fine. And, well, Florian, like, once the moment comes where Johann has decided to do this thing, Florian's not all that scared. Florian's like, yeah, I mean, I'm scared, but it is what it is, right? But Johann has also been stalking him because Florian is a bit of a sorcerer. He has a bit of, I guess you could call it, influence over the ways people act around him, Florian. And so that's another thing that, like, that intrigues Johann about this guy. Is like, this guy is different. He's like, yeah, okay, this is gonna be great. Well, he stalks him. They're not friends by any stretch of the imagination. Now they are, I guess, co-villains together, because neither one of them is a good dude. I don't even think they really have good intentions of any kind. At one point they do say something about, oh, well, we're like, they're doing something in order to protect the town, but that's absolutely crap. They are not. They are literally power hungry people who just want to make other people suffer. That's all there is to it. So they are simply just awful. And there is a point, somebody even quotes it, it's like, you're awful, Florian hisses out between chuckles. You're a vile creature. And he's like, Herr Leichenbloom, please. Johann smiles easily. Don't underestimate me. I am more than vile. I am an honest-to-God monster. And so that's just a quote from the book, because honestly, they both know each other is a fairly horrible, crappy person. And yet, that's why they get along, is because they're both able to utilize this. Now, Florian does put Johann to a couple of tests, because Johann really cannot be killed. He has been shot, stabbed, jumped off cliffs, all of this sort of stuff. And now Johann is like a lab rat to Florian, who is just experimenting with seeing how long it takes Johann to regenerate. It is wild. Now, there is this weird attraction between the two of them. I don't know if it's like a power thing or what it is, or just seeing that kindred dark spirit in the other, but there is a little bit of very toxic relationship shown between the two of them. I would say Florian is maybe not as amenable to it, but he's not completely against it either. Because there's a couple of moments, and if you ever read this, you'll know what I'm talking about. I would probably put a really hard PG-13, maybe NC-17 on this one, maybe. Like, maybe not an R, but we could give it an NC-17, I think. But these characters are pretty creepy, pretty crappy, but it just gives the whole vibe of this book, like the air of the streets of London during Jack the Ripper era. Everything's kind of damp and smoky and gross. And I think that's the perfect vibe for this book. Now, I still probably only give it about 4 stars, just simply because the one character that I would say that I was kind of rooting for at one point, because it's super hard for me to like a full-fledged 100% monster. I just like, because he's not even doing that for like a good reason. I guess, you know, when you watch the TV show Dexter and you're like, oh, but he only kills bad guys. Like, yeah, sure, he's a serial killer, but he only kills bad guys. Like, these people deserve it, right? Well, there's one particular character that I wish they had flushed her out a little bit more and didn't end that portion the way they did. I mean, I get it, because in this particular book, evil's going to win out. But that's all there is to that. But very interesting. If you are looking for something that's very dark and very grim, I guess this could be considered a grim dark, then this may be up your alley. It is considered an adult horror or adult like fantasy horror, very gothic in nature, but I don't know. It's totally up to you. I read this book and I was just kind of left scratching my head, like, what did I just read? And so that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think when I talk about it, it does help me put some thoughts in place that maybe didn't click previously. It's like when you have a conversation with a really good friend about a book you've read. Sometimes when you're talking about a scene or a scenario or something, you start to either like it a little more or a little less. It just really depends. But I am going to go ahead and leave it here, because again, it's a short book as well, and I think with these 2 episodes combined, this will actually give me a little bit of a longer episode. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you will. Sorry, that was a little burp. I hope you will. Thank you so much, and I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one.